The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners. Medical House presents Bermuda's most viewed and listened to talk show. The Daily Hour starts now.
It's Thursday, the 17th day of September. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House and Linda's. Happy first day of school to the teachers and the new students. I look forward to seeing the pictures if COVID doesn't interrupt. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with Carla Zul and Sherry Lynn Pringle. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine. If you haven't already, you know what to do. Share the link, start a watch party, get the conversation out there to your network. Look, we have another OBA candidate coming today, Mr. Ben Smith. Constituency 31 will be joining us, so should be a good conversation. A lot to talk about, especially canvassing platforms. We just don't know what's going on. The Daily Play is a name that plays, so Carla was trying to steal my answer and act like she said it, and we'll be victorious. So, what did I? Anything inappropriate?
I said 1963. You all can say what you like. I said okay.
I went through that tape like about 5 times. I heard you say 1963, but that was after saying 62, 65, 67, 68.
Cyberbullying me yesterday, but anyway. I'm really confused. You all must have super ears. I mean, I know I don't clean mine that often, but I did not hear her say 63. I heard every number, but we're not gonna pick on Carla. That's just too normal. That's too normal. But look, check it. There's a lot to talk about even before our guest comes in. But I'm sure you've read it. You see what's happening in Barbados? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let me preface this. I follow not many politicians, but I like Mia Mottley. I absolutely everything she stands for. Like, she is the leader that many islands in the region have been searching for, looking for. She's one of those leaders the people expect every time an election happens, right? But anyway, she's taken some gigantic steps, and I think removing the Queen as head of state is a pretty huge step. I saw people talking about, Bermuda's so far behind, because you got to remember, I think it was since 1982 was the last time a country did that, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. An audience.
What country was it? Do you know?
I want to say not Trinidad. That was in the 70s. Was it Mauritius? Let me see. I think it might have been Mauritius. I could be wrong, but I think Mauritius was the last country that removed the Queen as head of state. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but that was in 1992. Yeah, so it's not something that happens often. But I say that because Bermudians have been scared into not even wanting their own independence. That's puzzling.
Okay, so at the risk of you all laughing at me and shouting at me, right? Barbados is independent anyway. So for those who may not understand it, like me, I know she's on the money. What does the head of state mean? Like, define that as such.
I think when it comes to head of state, so you've ever been as part of the conversations where the people are on there saying, what kind of independence do people want in Bermuda? Like, do they want to be free or free? So use Jamaica and Trinidad, right? When we went to the Privy Council, which is the highest court in England, for conscription, right? You were shocked to see that there were cases from Jamaica still there. Why? Because the Queen still had a state. That's an example. All right. So you're still being ultimate decisions still are determined by the Queen.
Although you're an independent country.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you say independent versus independent. I got you. I just
Yeah.
wanted to understand because I was like, I thought Barbados was independent.
But I think there are people in your situation, people who have moved to the UK who love to speak about, well, if they go independent, you know, I benefited from the relationship and da 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 da. And again, it's fair that's being struck into people like it's in their best interest. What's really annoying is when you hear non-black Bermudians, I'll just say that, make comments like, well, ask the people of Jamaica how they feel about independence. Well, when you consider Barbados and Jamaica still see the Queen as their head of state, it wouldn't surprise me that some blame independence for their situation, which really is not the case. And I didn't learn that till I was in college in economics. When you don't play ball with the bigger countries, they punish you. So and corruption, but that has nothing to do with being independent or dependent. I think what Bermuda always had riding for it, probably not now, but what Bermuda always had riding for it as a self-governing country was the fact that it was well run, economically and sound. So I've always been, you know, an understanding person when it comes to independence alone, but I just don't think that. I think that the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party, when they became government in '98, I think a lot of people expected movement towards that, but it never happened. I think people got comfortable with what they were receiving and what they were getting, and then years later, you started to see them accepting the titles from Britain. So it's really, I don't know, it's very, very confusing from a Bermudian perspective.
Yeah, I was surprised when I read about that, and then I had the same questions as Carla did, because they went independent in 1966. What has taken them? Why has it taken them so long to make that decision? And so if you look at it in a Bermudian perspective, if we were to go independent, are we saying that we don't remove the figurehead right away? We keep it, and then there's another step to this?
I always heard Jamal talk about praise Mia Motley. So maybe this is yet another way that she's showing that she is innovative and forward thinking. Maybe no one's had the gumption or the vision to do it before now.
I think that's it. I think that's what to answer Shar. I think what Carla's saying is exactly what I was going to say just now. It's the leadership. She has been what I expect of the person in the premiership of Bermuda. Fearless. You can't be in that position and be scared to do what you're going to, what you say you're going to do. I think there's a lot of timid leaders that get in Bermuda's head position. And so in order to do what Mia Motley is doing, you have to be fearless. You have to believe in you. You have to believe in your community, your country, and your fellow people. And I think what she's done as leader is saying, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to remove that figurehead, and we're going to be Barbadians. And here's the most interesting thing, and I might have shared this on a show before, that when I was working in Bermuda at Hot 107.5, a sitting MP and minister at the time, who's still a sitting MP and minister in the government today, said to me, Bermuda's independence isn't going to be our decision. And what I find interesting right now is the title of this article I have up says, Queen responds after Barbados removes her as head of state. Quote, it's a matter for the people. The point of me saying that is Bermudians who don't want independence, just prepare. Because once the UK is done with you, I mean, if they see you as no benefit, then they will tell you, you know what, you're on your own. So I'll never forget that MP saying that. Man, that's a valid point. Like, if they don't have any use for us, then hey, go on your own. So
and they can just do that. I mean, I know not like literally just, but they can say by 2025 we're releasing you and you're an independent country. Could they do that?
That sounds so enslaved. I mean, when you put it,
I know, but I mean,
when you put it like that, of course, of course, it's just a matter of how it benefits them. Let's go to this. Craig, Luby, Carla. Joy.
I think Bermuda should be scared of going to independence while under this existing governance system because the Bermuda politician has stacked the deck and has governed Bermuda dishonestly and have abused their governance of Bermuda while connected to the UK. And they should, and they would stack the governance deck far worse going independent. I've never used governance so many times in the sentence. Sorry.
Yeah. John Smith says the Queen is the head of Commonwealth. Yes, a free association of sovereign states comprising the United Kingdom and a number of its foreign dependencies who's chosen to maintain ties of friendship. And so what he's speaking of is places like Canada, Australia.
Yeah, she's still on their money, right?
Yeah, Canada, Australia, Jamaica, the Solomon Islands. It's quite a few of them up in the Commonwealth. So I don't know if you guys remember the Commonwealth Games. That all falls under there. That's actually how I learned about the Commonwealth there. But thank you for that, Sean Smith. Yeah, Bermuda has some decisions to make. Definitely has some decisions to make. I still feel that majority of the country is afraid. Bermudians do fear being independent, which is such a shame. It's such a shame.
And I mean, that's been a conversation since I was little. And I remember hearing it, discussed, and then it goes away. So my thing is, at what point does someone take that step? Because everyone will be stuck otherwise in this fear, and it could be the best thing that Bermuda ever had. So how does that shift arise?
I think education. I think when you're dealing with things like this, it's all about education. And I don't think that Bermudians have been educated enough to a point. I think we're over the fact that people used to say, oh, you don't want to end up like Jamaica, which I think was outright derogatory and wrong. But they don't speak about the other islands who've been on their own and done pretty well. It's like Brexit. People who were against the idea of the UK exiting the European Union, they don't discuss the countries that have done well, I believe, like Switzerland and so on. So I just think it's a matter of, it comes down to fear-mongering and education. And if people are educated enough to understand that a self-governing country that has been pretty successful, by what Mr. Lube is saying, that under this government system, that's probably not the case, then Bermuda probably had a chance at one point. I think what confuses myself and probably many others is that it was in the original PLP Constitution. Why haven't they done more to educate and move towards that? That's what I think is extremely confusing to people.
That's what actually surprised me, learning that was original in their original Constitution since 1963, and there hasn't been any real movement towards getting the people ready. And so then when Sir John Swan, when they did the referendum, I wasn't here. I don't understand what happened there, if we weren't ready or if it was just we don't want to do it because he's suggesting it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I got the feeling because if I remember, the late Al Frederick Wade was the leader of the PLP at the time, and I believe he called for a boycott. I think that's in Dr. Brown's book as well, what happened there. But I think it was a missed opportunity. I think it was a big missed opportunity, if I'm quite honest. I think at that time, with the business mind that Sir John Swan had, I don't see that time arriving anytime soon. I don't. Real quickly, before we head to the news, don't forget we have OBA candidate and current MP Ben Smith joining us today. I have a few things I want to pop by you guys real quickly. So, and congrats again to all the teachers and students returning to school today. Wishing you the very best of school years. Don't miss those days. I was not the best, but we've been through. Not getting into that today. So real quickly, so remember my neighbor who thought my name was Malik?
Yeah, Malik.
And I didn't correct him when he would say Malik, and then my mother-in-law pretty much sold me up a river and told him my name and said, oh, his name's Jamel, right? Well, go on my evening walk with the wife, and we're in the garage, and I hear someone saying, Jamel, and I go out, man, well, you didn't tell me your name, not name Malik. I just said, oh, man. And then, folks, I don't like to give advice, but if I could give one piece of advice, this will be it today. He then proceeds to ask me what I think about the Black Lives Matter. Then all lives matter to me and all this. And I told my wife, I said, if we did not live here with your mother, and she did not, this was not her neighbor, you know that would have been a different conversation. She goes, thank you. You've come so far. You've come so far.
But see, he didn't actually use name Malik because he thought you was a Muslim.
Yeah.
Because you had a safe name like Jamal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a bit more down the line, right? So I was cautious, and obviously my wife did, because she's always like, no, you know, she's just on more middle of the line, and I'm just like, he keeps asking, and last week he asked me, not last week, the last time we spoke, he asked me my thoughts on Trump and Biden, and I'm just like,
oh gosh.
And so my advice to people is, when you don't know a person, you should probably stay away from politics and controversial things, because I'm not quite sure he's ready for the conversation that we could have had. And I am telling you, if she was not there, she knows how I am. And probably a year ago, I would have still just been and said what I wanted to say. But I'm just like, no, she's her. She's gonna probably, you know, but anyway.
Does your neighborhood have those yard signs? So does he have a Trump
You're not allowed.
sign?
Yeah, that's not allowed in the community. Yeah, you can't put up signs in a community like this. So that's a great thing. However, if you don't live in Bermuda, there's this thing called the Nextdoor app, right? So the Nextdoor app is my current boss actually told me to join this app and download it when I first moved to South Florida. And what it does is it helps you meet your neighbors, and you know.
Is it green?
Yes.
Is it the green? I have it too.
You have it. So, but here's what's crazy. Over the last few months, it's become so political that, you know, last year this time, I was actually felt good like a Floridian, because I was giving people advice on like who to contact, what to do, and you know, obviously I'm in sales, so I was trying to get people to come to the hockey arena. So, but now it's become this thing where you realize who your neighbors are politically. And I'm just like, I don't even open the app. I haven't opened it in like a month or two, and so I did see an update saying they've basically banned the apps. What I'll say is, Florida, if you didn't know already, it's an interesting state. It's a big state. But it's an interesting state with an interesting group of people. But yeah, Jamal, formerly known as Malik, had to avoid having a confrontation about all lives matter. And because this gentleman decided to ask me about how I felt about protests and so on. Now, I did respond to him. I did tell him that I have no problem with protests, because protests are supposed to make people uncomfortable. And he still went on. And I'm just like, and my wife's in back of me, so she's probably making faces as she told me after. And I'm just like, breathe, Jamal, breathe. On that note, though,
that's why you're supposed to have some dairy-free bubble gum.
Right? We do have to get to the news. So, Carla, are you ready for us? Let's go. And then coming up, like we said, we do have OBA candidate Mr. Ben Smith joining us, current MP as well. Ben Smith joining us for a good old conversation. Here we turn it over to Carla.
The Bermuda Airport Authority expressed its deep concerns that a website sharing vital hurricane information had failed at a critical time. Regular updates were halted on the Bermuda Weather Service website due to infrastructure problems as Hurricane Paulette battered Bermuda on Monday. Lester Nelson, the chief executive of the authority, which monitors the Bermuda Weather Service, said, "We are planning to replace aging technology. This challenge could not have come at a worse time." The website was restored on Wednesday. Meanwhile, meteorologists had to use social media to deliver regular updates to the public as the storm hit the island. In court news, a man jailed for a string of sexual offenses against a schoolgirl has lost his appeal against conviction. Kenneth Williams, 47, of Pembroke, was sentenced to 3 years in prison last year after he was convicted in magistrate's court of 6 counts of sexually touching a child under the age of 14 while in a position of trust. He was also convicted of performing an indecent act in front of the child, intrusion on her privacy, and showing her pornography. All of the incidents took place between June 2014 and January 2016. Williams argued that his right to a fair trial within a reasonable time had been breached by repeated delays in his trial process. Both stories were courtesy of the Royal Gazette. Turning to entertainment news, Kanye West isn't happy with the music industry. Yesterday, the 43-year-old rapper shared numerous tweets about music ownership and recording contracts before posting a video that appeared to show himself peeing on one of his 21 Grammys. "Trust me, I won't stop," West wrote alongside the clip. Sherry, in honor of you today, we will acknowledge, what is today? Do you know, Sherry?
I have no idea, Carla.
She lied. International Country Music Day. Yeehaw! Why did I do that? International Country Music Day is a day that has been designed so we can pay tribute to some of the world's best country artists. Whether you're a huge fan of the genre or not, you are encouraged to listen to some country music on this day. You can even break out a fiddle or a banjo and get involved yourself. Turning to weather, Bermuda's high today will be 84. It's expected to be 102 in Las Vegas and 67 in Nottingham, UK. And don't forget, Medical House is your #1 source of PPE supplies, masks, face shields, disinfectants, sanitizers, gloves, gowns, no-touch thermometers, and so much more at the lowest prices. Visit Medical House at 22 Mill Reach Lane in Pembroke. And on a programming note, don't forget to tune in to the full100.com tonight for what, Jamal? Nighttime Jams, featuring some of your favorite romantic classics.
I was trying to get my search ready. I was.
That's your daily hour news break.
Nighttime Jams. Okay. Real quickly. So I saw the video of Kanye West before we go pay some bills. I saw him peeing on a Grammy, and I was just like, all right, let me skip that. But on a note where you did say it was Country Day, Country Music Day.
Yeah.
So this must be said that although I did get my break at Radio Disney, my actual radio break, big radio break, I was the morning show producer of Cat Country 98.1, which is in Rhode Island. So country radio was my break into radio. A lot of people don't know that. So I was yeah, that's how we got here, folks. I loved a good bit of country music at the time. And for those who don't know, it's actually the biggest selling genre. A lot of people don't know that. Taylor Swift, when I was working as the morning show producer, we actually got her first song, which was about Tim McGraw, in that studio that day. And whether or not it will play. And look at where she's come from country.
That's right. She started in country, didn't she?
Yeah. So yeah, I was happy to be a part of that. So radio, you know, this country music has played a big role in what we're doing today. So thank you for that, Carla. On that note, I must say this. This is the first day, folks. This big announcement here. Yeah, that's my drum roll. Big announcement. This is the first day that we now have our own YouTube station specifically for the Daily Hour. So if you haven't already, you can subscribe to the Daily Hour on there. If you might need the link because it's new, so it might be hard to find. So just send us an email, engage@thedailyhour.com, and we'll send you the link to the site. But without further ado, we still are available on Facebook, on the dailyhour.com, for 100 Radio Facebook page, for 100 Radio YouTube page, Twitter and Twitch at the Daily Hour. So we are still available. I mean, you can watch us in pretty much 7 or 8 places now. So there's no excuse why you or your family can't support. But we have to pay some bills. Apologies, we're a bit behind. We have to pay some bills. We'll be right back with MP Ben Smith after this break.
Good day, Medical House, Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare.
I found myself being a caregiver. Even though I was a nurse, I still needed help on, what was available in hospital beds and all that kind of equipment, and I knew where to go. I went to Medical House.
Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products. These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
I was very pleased with Medical House. and the help they gave me when I most needed it.
Your experience with Medical House is about getting your needs met, but we also try to provide knowledge to help you through whatever you're experiencing.
Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there's private parking right outside the door.
I would recommend them to anybody.
Call or visit Medical House today.
This month, we're featuring something very special. Aloe drinks in 4 delicious flavors. Aloe drinks start with the natural benefits of real aloe vera, hand-picked and pressed, ensuring goodness that is straight from the leaf, never from powder. This crisp, refreshing base of real aloe vera pulp is then enhanced with a mix of real fruit juices to create a variety of unique flavors. Try aloe drinks with real aloe vera. They go beyond their luscious taste to make you feel amazing from the inside out. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
Tune in to the Full 100 Radio every Tuesday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Bermuda time as we bring you the love, romance, sexiness with nighttime jams. Only on your station for conversations and entertainment. The Full 100 Radio. Download the app available for Android and Apple devices.
And welcome back. Wow, my computer froze for a good bit just now. I was like, I hope it's back. I can hear everything, but nothing was moving. So we are back. And without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day, MP Ben Smith. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Apologies about the delay. I'm going to just say that it was Carla's fault. I don't know why, but these games.
I'll take it.
Yeah, see, she can take the hit. But thank you for taking the time to join us. Let's get right to it. Let's get this question out of the way because it has been sent to us. People want to know. Yourself and MP Leah Scott were featured in a video where you questioned Premier David Burt's, sorry, not you, but it was Premier David Burt's loyalty to Bermuda. It was questioned due to his mother's heritage. What was the purpose of that video and those comments? What was the goal that was trying to be achieved for that video?
So overall, obviously, it was an 18-minute video, and the piece that was clipped that a lot of people are talking about was a very short part of that 18-minute video. The part that was, I guess, controversial, the piece that actually made a lot of people go to look at the video, hopefully to watch all of it instead of just that one part, was actually based on, the conversations in Bermuda have gone to an area where foreigners and foreign labor and the relationship between immigration in Bermuda has gone to a point where it's an us versus them. There's quite a bit of anger. There's quite a bit of angst just because of the way things have been handled over an ongoing period of time. So what MP Scott was bringing up was that, the premier is a first generation Bermudian, not in a negative way, but just pointing it out, right? We have people in Bermuda that have come from other places. If you go through the history of Bermuda, a lot of the people that are actually in leadership positions and have been in leadership positions and helped to build our country have actually come to Bermuda from other countries. But when you start to hear things that look like we are saying we don't want anyone else to come into the country, it needs to be brought up and discussed. And what are we going to do to kind of figure out how do we get out of the problems that we have in Bermuda if we are saying that no one else is allowed in, but people that are here have actually have roots that come from outside of the country.
Real quickly before we move on, but the PLP funded offensive and they had asked for an apology. Many of their supporters throughout social media, again, like you said, I watched all 18 and 19 minutes of it. I'm not sure if many people did because the way media works now, you can take a clip and people can create any narrative. So I agree with you with that. But people were upset by it. The PLP asked for an apology. As far as I know, an apology was not issued. Do you feel like that is playing into, you mentioned immigration and how it's going, and it was spoken about how the PLP has treated immigrants. But do you think this is playing into the hand of negativity rather than positivity that really could have come out of that?
I guess the real thing is that there probably should have been follow-up conversation. So this is the opportunity right now for me. No one reached out to me and said, what were my feelings on it? We have policies where we tell, our international business that they are not training Bermudians, giving Bermudians opportunities. That message goes across everywhere, though, right? So every industry has to be in the same place where we're trying to make sure that our Bermudians are trained to have the skills to take the jobs that are available in Bermuda. The immigration policies that we have in Bermuda are already restrictive. So, the idea that the floodgates are going to open, we're going to let a bunch of people in, is not the case, because that's not how our system is set up. But if you have people that have been in the country for 20 something years and they don't have the ability to call themselves a Bermudian and pass that on to their children, it's difficult, when you hear the rhetoric that has only gone one way over and over again. I just think it's time that we have an open conversation. In the past, immigration was used as a weapon. So first, we need to acknowledge that was the position that the country was in. And now, as we move forward, knowing that we're going to have to need more people in the country in order for us to increase the base and get us out of the hole that we're in, we're going to have proper conversations of what that looks like.
Gotcha.
So on the flip side of what Jamal asked, I saw the video, I saw the comments more interestingly, and many of your OBA supporters were against that conversation. Do you have any regrets about how, because what you're saying today and the way it came across, I think are two distinctively different things. Do you have any regrets about making that video? Do you feel it served a purpose?
I guess what I would say is, lesson learned that small bites of clips is really what is going to be the message that people take, and it goes around the island quite quickly. When you're having a conversation and trying to give information on several topics, and that's why it was an 18-minute video, right? There were a lot of things that we were talking about, and this one piece was taken out and kind of taken out of context. If you know Leah Scott, you know that she is not somebody that is actually going to be speaking out against kind of people coming from another country. That doesn't make sense, specifically just from her own background. So being taken out of context, knowing who the two people were in the video, it's just difficult in the day and age that we are, when you take a clip and you put it out and make people think that it's saying one thing when that was not the purpose of it.
Okay, let's move on. Bermudians have had various issues, including but not limited to economy, health insurance, education. But in your canvassing, what have you been hearing on the doorstep?
So the economy is definitely the number one issue. Most people are afraid of what is about to happen next. Obviously shutting down the country during the pandemic was a health decision, and it was to keep the citizens safe. But the next step is going to be, how do we recover? Biggest issue for Bermuda is that we were not in a great economic state prior to the pandemic. So this has kind of fast forwarded us to a position that I would say that most people that are alive now would not have seen before in Bermuda. So multiple industries are hurting. And how do we get people to continue to work when we just don't have the customer base that we need in order for business to continue? That is a piece that is really giving people anxiety. They were anxious because they're not sure what the health situation is with the pandemic, and we have, the airport is open and people are coming into the country. So the cases, although controlled, they're still coming in on an ongoing basis. School has just opened, so now the opportunity for spread is there. And now we have an election, and elections actually cause anxiety. If you look historically, whenever we have an election, it has an impact on the economy. Usually things slow down for a period of time, just because there's uncertainty of where things are and where things are going to go. So when you layer all those things on top of, this pandemic that no one had ever imagined was going to happen, the anxiety level of the population is actually quite high.
Mr. Smith, you've been a member of Parliament since July 2017. What have you done during your time in the House that should encourage voters in your constituency to vote for you?
So I will say that when I first started out, brand new to politics, I hadn't been involved with political party or politics in any way till about 6 weeks prior to the 2017 election. It was a steep learning curve. Obviously, learning while being, in the opposition with a party that had kind of gone through an extreme transition after that election. I had to learn what it meant to be in the House. How do you do all the things that need to be done, and how can I make myself useful in helping the country to move forward? So I've built relationships on my side and on the PLP side, which has allowed me to have conversations and give input on an ongoing basis. So as the Shadow Minister of National Security, I've had the opportunity to work along Minister Keynes and now Minister Ming. I've also been on the Immigration Reform Committee, which was formed under Walton Brown, who was a very close personal friend of mine. And then continuing on with both of those committees, I think has given me the ability to give input and to try to frame where Bermuda is going to go next. I also was put on the EMO committee by Minister Keynes during the pandemic, which is something that has never happened before, having an opposition member on that committee. But I believe that the country is looking for our government and our oppositions to work together where possible. It is our job to make sure that we give information and we give criticism when criticism is necessary, but at the same time that we have the ability to understand that we have to work together, specifically in times of crisis when it's time for us to figure out what is in the best interests of Bermuda.
Okay, that's great. Switching lanes, you had expressed concerns about the sugar tax. Explain them, and if the OBA becomes government, what would you do about legislation such as this?
Well, my main issue with the sugar tax, and I brought this up when the debate for sugar tax happened, is that Bermuda tends to come up with a tax to say that we're trying to curb a behavior. And then that tax usually continues to creep up in the amount of tax. But we don't usually use the funds that we're bringing in for the reason that we said we were going to use it for. So you'll note that, the sin taxes for alcohol and tobacco continue to go up time and time again, but really the behavior doesn't change much. It just puts the cost of it up and it increases the amount of tax and revenue that's coming into the government. So the sugar tax, where the idea makes sense, where you're trying to curb the behavior of our population. Bermuda has an unhealthy population, a high level of diabetes. So yes, we should be trying our best to tackle that. But when you bring in the sugar tax money and none of that revenue actually went to an education program or to try to help people with diabetes, then we've gone the same route that we've gone every other time. It just goes into the pile and the money gets used for whatever reason. Really, we need to start to be honest with what we're trying to do as a country. Our health insurance bills are out of hand because we have an aging population, but we also have a sick population. So if we don't start to get healthy living as an idea from a young age, so that our children understand that the diet that they have, the consumption of water over sugary drinks, the exercise that's actually needed for a healthy living, we're going to have to change the way that we handle all of our citizens. And it's not about forcing people to do things, but it's educating them and having them understand the consequences if we don't make those changes.
So, sorry, let's switch gears a bit. So why do you believe that the OBA had such difficulty fielding 36 candidates?
Well, the truth of the matter is, in certain constituencies, that historically the numbers are going to go in one direction as opposed to another direction. So if you know that a particular seat has been won over and over again at a high amount towards one party, it's difficult to get somebody to stand up knowing that from the beginning they feel that it's hopeless, that they don't have an opportunity to actually be part of the process. I believe that what we have to do as a country is start to move towards a situation where people start to vote for the best candidate as opposed to just team. Bermuda really is in a spot right now where it seems to be, if you have a red shirt on or if you had a green shirt on, and the decision is based off of that rather than, is this particular person the one that's going to be able to do what's best for my constituency, to answer questions for me personally when I'm making that vote, and as a country as a whole.
But I would think that that's more reason why you should have 36 candidates, because if I live in 31, just for example, and it's always been won by the PLP, but I want to hear something fresh, I want to see Ben Smith. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it.
I agree with you, but I'm also going to say this. Part of the problem in Bermuda right now is that politics has become so toxic, right? The conversations that instead of us sitting down and having open, honest conversations on how we can move things forward, like the discussion on immigration, like discussion on race, where we can actually make changes, it's just shouting at each other, throwing mud at each other. And a lot of times people are looking at that and saying, why would I get involved with that? What kind of impact is that going to have on me? And that's the difficulty. I think there are some people that are putting their hand up to say that they are willing to get involved and try their best to move the country forward. But there's a lot of other people that are saying no, just because they don't believe that the toxic environment that has been going on for quite some time is something that they want to be a part of.
Now, the election is in 2 weeks and still no platforms. What is the electorate voting for the OBA?
Well, so we will be rolling out starting today. Each category will be coming out starting today. Part of the issue is that, honestly, we were waiting to see what the government was going to do. The government has been in power for 3 years. They had a large majority. They've called an early election, and they don't seem to want to put out a plan of what they're going to do with the majority that they had. They did, in my opinion, very little. If you think that there are all these major issues that you want to change, and you have the kind of majority that the government has had, you would think that they would have been implementing those changes. So now we get, we're 2 weeks out, the government is not given a plan, and really Bermuda has fallen off an economic cliff and then got hit by a pandemic on top of it. So, the country needs to hear what that's going to look like. So we will be putting out what our thoughts on what needs to happen, but I think it's also important to hear what the government is thinking that they're going to do. And if you've called an early election, you obviously should have a plan, so that plan should come out already.
Great. Mr. Smith, in a recent opinion piece, you gave the analogy of the Titanic. Your statement was relating this scene to Bermuda. We must be aware that the wealthy, if needed, have a plan and a lifeboat. The workers are already underwater, and the middle class is quickly finding itself up to its necks. Resonated with me. What will the OBA government do to right the economic ship?
So the problem in Bermuda is that the position that we put ourselves in is that the tourism industry, that was the industry that I know myself personally, my father was an entertainer. So the hospitality industry was what built a lot of kind of the early wealth in Bermuda for Bermudians. And then we moved to international business, and international business has flourished, and some people have been able to make out really well with that. What we have to do is make sure that as we are trying to attract international investment into the country, which also will mean that there will be people from outside of the country that come to Bermuda. That we set up the framework to make sure that Bermudians are part of that process. The issue that we have right now is that because we have spent a large amount of our time pointing fingers and telling these people that they're not wanted here, when they are the ones that are actually paying a lot of our bills, right? So the pandemic happens, and if you look at the third sector has been propped up by funds that were coming from the private sector, and in a large amount of those cases, that's coming from people that are not Bermudian. And every opportunity you see, you're seeing someone looking for them to bail us out. Well, part of what has to happen is we have to figure out how we are part of that program. And my personal feeling is that data is going to be one of the things that we have to do. It was actually shocking this summer to find out that we don't have a system that allows us to know how many people we have in each industry. So, from an immigration standpoint, if you make a decision to say that you're going to stop all people in the landscaping industry or from electricians, and you don't know how many Bermudians you have qualified, lined up to take those jobs, then you've made a decision based off of just pulling an idea out of the hat. Now, the impact could be that the company that put that application in now can't do the jobs that they needed to do. And now the Bermudians that are working for that company also lose. So we have to stop cutting off our nose to spite our face. We have to understand that the messages that we send out and the conversations that we have in the House of Assembly and in the public, when we throw things out because it seems like it's a great idea for political gain, a lot of times it's really bad for the country. If you are the CEO or someone who is trying to set up a business in a jurisdiction and you're looking at Bermuda as an option, and all you do is type into Google and see there's a bunch of kind of issues going on in Bermuda, maybe that's one of the things that's making a decision for that company not to come here. Well, we need to be open and welcoming to business at the same time that we are creating the framework for our people to be part of that business.
I've learned to shut my fat mouth and be very observant during these conversations, and I've observed a lot today. And with all due respect, I just feel like if we ended the conversation right now, I'm not quite sure, outside of you saying the platform released today or parts of it, what would make me want to vote for my candidate, if I had one, actually, because I don't have a candidate, if I wasn't removed from the registrar, but Carla's still on it. But I say that because when you were asked by one of my colleagues, what have you accomplished while you're in the House? We had a question from the audience, which actually was on my mind, and we've had so many and I can't find it. But basically, you explained the committees that you're on.
Yes.
And for me, that sounds no different from saying that you've been employed for 20 years. I mean, that was good 20 years ago. But what have you done while on these committees to right that ship that Shari mentioned later on? What have you done on these committees to improve the livelihood? One of the things that a lot of the electorate don't know, and a lot of our viewers and listeners don't know, is that you don't need to be the government to table a bill. So is there a bill that you put forth that wasn't accepted? Is there the bill that the OBA put forth during their time in opposition? I remember the PLP put a bill forth that the OBA rejected, which was to end conscription, which the OBA said they were going to do. They didn't do, and then the PLP did it within a year. So I say all that to say is, personally, if someone's seeking my vote and I vote for them, I'm expecting actual action rather than just appointments and names on a piece of sheet. So I want to know, what is it that you've done or the OBA have done to earn this election? Not necessarily what the PLP has done wrong. I mean, when we look at U.S. politics, Joe Biden, the candidate for the Democratic Party, made a comment where Charlemagne the God asked him something about what's he doing to earn the black vote. And he basically responded that, oh, if you're not black if you don't vote for him. And then once you say that he's carried the black vote, the majority of black vote all his life in his area, right? what he didn't explain is you've gotten the black vote, but what have you done for those who have voted for you? So I think that's what we're looking for on this program. We're looking for what you've done and what you plan on doing. And from the comments, and we're getting a lot, people just want to hear that. They want to hear more of what you've done to earn their vote again, and what do you plan on doing once you get there.
So obviously, like I laid out for you at first, I'm going to say the first part of being in the House was it was difficult. And it was difficult because you're learning what it is that is possible for you to do. So when you have a 2-to-1 in the House, you can speak to issues, you can give your feedback, but it actually gets lost in the mix because the number is so big. So then you make statements and you speak to the press as much as you can, when really the message and the answers are really coming from the government most of the time. I agree with you that putting bills forward and making decisions on what it is that we think can be done is an answer, and it is something that we were working on. I know that Trevor Monis put together a fraud bill that did not make it forward, which is something that I think that everybody in the country, and really from an international business side and from a local side, I think that would have been something that was important for us to put forward. We also were putting together a bill that was to deal with equity in Bermuda. You know, the conversations about how Black Bermudians are treated differently than white Bermudians and being left out a lot of what's happening in the country and the progress in the country is, I'm going to say, rhetoric that I heard for the last 3 years in the House. Now, the question is, are we willing to put things in place that actually make those changes? Now, we were writing something to do that, but as I said to you, it's difficult in the setup of how government and opposition is at the moment. And with 11 people, and the truth being that if you look at what we were doing, some of us were carrying extra ministries to try to move things forward. We need to do more, and to me, one of the things that needed to happen, and we will continue to be moving in that direction, is to hear us more. Right? It's difficult to get a voice in Bermuda that people can hear on an ongoing basis. People are afraid of putting their hand up and putting their head above the kind of line to support a position that doesn't line up with, maybe your party position. We have to get past that. And it's what I have learned in the time that I've been here. And by the time we reached, year 3, my voice was being heard more and more because I started to get my footing. I started to understand what it is that we could do in this minority position that we had been in.
Gotcha. Running out of time, but I do have one more question. A new political party, the Free Democratic Movement, entered a good amount of candidates, and one of their candidates is running in your constituency. How have you responded to this additional challenge, and do you feel that it would thwart your attempts to be re-elected?
The truth of the matter is that I believe that in a democracy, if somebody believes that they have something to offer to the public, then that's, to me, not a threat to me. It's just another person looking for an opportunity to have their voice heard. So I believe it's healthy for Bermuda to have people that actually want to step up and move things forward. I think that if we start to have different ideas and people that are willing to express those ideas, that's going to be better off for us than where we're only hearing, the mudslinging and name calling and those things. If we can start to get to, information coming from multiple places, then we can use the information that's coming, and it doesn't matter which party that's coming from, for us to collectively come up with the ways that we are going to be able to move forward and get out of this real problem that we're in.
But do you think that it provides a difficult challenge for you to be reelected? Do you think having a third candidate there helps you or hinders your opportunity to be reelected?
The truth is, I haven't thought about it. Really, it's been about speaking to my constituents, trying to get the message that I would like to get to my people. Really, if I'm focused on what the other parties are doing and what the other candidates are doing, then that means that I'm not focused on what I can do for my constituents. I believe that what all of us need to be doing is connecting with our constituents and then having them understand what it is that you are going to be able to do if elected.
Gotcha. Last question. We've run out of time. Do you believe that the OBA can gain more seats in this upcoming election, or is the clock against them?
I believe the OBA can win more seats. I'm a national swimming coach, so I look towards figuring out ways to win. How do you give the motivation to the people on your team so that they understand that why you're doing what you're doing? If we're in this just for the idea that we're just showing up, then that is a waste of everybody's time. So we believe that we have the ideas and the connections, and we have learned from things that have happened in the past that we can do what's best for the country. And because of that, gaining more seats and getting to the point that we are the government is the goal, and it will always be the goal.
All righty. MP Ben Smith, I think someone earlier was like, that's candidate. No, you're still currently an MP, right?
Yes.
All right. So I did see it correctly. MP Ben Smith, thank you so much for joining us, having this conversation. We look forward. Well, I look forward. I don't know other people. I really want to see the platforms and I was removed from the
let it go, man.
You want to help me out with that to find out why I was removed from the registrar, but I think it's a conspiracy. But all seriousness, I appreciate you coming to have this conversation and sharing why you believe you're the best candidate in your constituency. And if there's anything that you'd like to say before you leave, can you let us know in 30 seconds?
I can. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to speak specifically to our uniformed services. That has been, as shadow of national security, this has been the issue that I've been working on. And I believe that we need to support them better than making statements about how we're going to lay them off after the election. They're the ones that helped us to get through this pandemic. This is the reason that the election is being called, because of the success of that. So if we then turn our backs on those people, we got to be very careful of what that looks like on the other side of this election. So I think it's important that we have proper conversations and not just throw mud at people.
Thank you so much, sir. All the best in the upcoming election. We'll be watching closely.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one. So sorry to everyone that we didn't get to all the comments and questions. Obviously, time went by fast, and my colleagues had some awesome questions that we just wanted to get answers to. So
I got more.
Yeah, we trust me, I have more too. We have a lot of questions. So sorry about that. I just want to put this disclaimer as well. We're going to have the daily play. We're just going to go a bit over time. This disclaimer. I know people were saying have FDM or other candidates on from other parties. As I stated previously, we do not mind having any candidate, but unless they meet our terms and conditions for the daily hour, then they're not on. The OBA candidates are meeting our terms and conditions to come on the show. And so here we have it. Independents have reached out as well. If they meet the terms and conditions of the daily hour, then we are welcoming everyone. Don't forget, next week we do have Dr. the Honorable UF Brown coming on. Should be hot. Let's get to the daily play. Let's give some people some fun before we close it out.
Okay, it's really easy today. Okay, we're going to an island that's located in the Eastern Caribbean. The population is just under 98,000, with the majority living on the sister island, which is 39 miles away.
Tobago.
Nevis.
Its size is 62 square miles, and the official language is English. It gained its independence in 1981.
Well, you were right, I think, Jamal, because I said Nevis, but Nevis is underpopulated. But most people live in St. Kitts. Nevis, I'm sticking to it.
You keep saying Nevis, and she's already gave us Nevis as an answer earlier this year. If she gave the same country as her answer, I'm gonna have to tell her go revisit her plan.
You remember something like that?
September 2017, it was devastated by Hurricane Irma and uninhabited for the first time in 300 years.
One of the Bahama Islands?
Its sister island holds carnival end of July each year to celebrate freedom from slavery.
Barbados.
It can't be Barbados.
It's often referred to as Bermuda, but
Barbuda.
Okay, so Antigua and Barbuda is the answer.
Yeah, we got that one. Barbuda.
You got it?
Yeah,
I said Barbados, but the Buddha was silent.
We got Barbuda at the same time, Carla.
Yes, we did, Mal. That's our story.
All right, so give us some inspiration, and then we'll close it out on this episode. And
so many questions. I'm saying the Bermuda. The beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take it away from you. The late great B.B. King.
All right, B.B. King. I went to B.B. King's in New Orleans. Real quickly, just to explain, I see a question. What are the terms and conditions? Every political party and candidate has them. If you're a candidate, please reach out to us and we'll give them to you as well. So
ask your candidates.
If you're in a party, go ask your party. They all have our terms and conditions. And let me just be very clear, because we're a Black-owned or Black-run or a Black-looking show, doesn't mean we're going to be treated any less. I'll just put that out there. I don't know how more clear I can put that, but just respect our craft and all will be well. Right? Any final words, my friends?
I just want to extend condolences to the family of Lyric Lightwin, the young man, 21 years old, lost on our roads, our third road traffic fatality. It's heartbreaking.
Very sad situation.
No, I just have questions. Have a great day, everyone. Have a great day, and let's see those platforms.
All right. Thanks again to MP Ben Smith for joining us today. Don't forget, tomorrow we actually have our sponsors, Medical House, joining us. We have a lot to talk about. They played a big role during the pandemic. A lot of questions. So make sure you tune into that. Don't forget, next week we have a huge lineup, which includes the former Premier, Dr. Brown. Outside of that, we appreciate you. We love you. And we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to The Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House. All recorded episodes and highlights can be found at thedailyhour.com. Stay connected with us by following us at The Daily Hour on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.